In this episode, I take on a big challenge. I'm designing a front flipper. I've never done that before. I'll give you 5 professional knife designers tips, and I'll tell you why the Monte Carlo slip joint has become my most successful custom folder. This is the 3rd episode of designing a slip joint for my new shop build series. We've talked about the history about slip joints. Last episode I sketched a bunch of sketches for the new design. Today I'm actually challenging myself to design a new mechanism that I've never tried before, and that is a front flipper. I've never done a front flipper before. Why? I have absolutely no idea. I've been designing traditional flippers for a long time, but for this design I want it to be a front flipper. What is a front flipper, you ask? Well, since I've never designed one myself, I can't show you one of my own designs, but I'll show you a custom knife that I own. This is a Sienkiewicz design. Maybe it's a little untraditional front flipper, but it is a front flipper. And when it's open, there's no flipper sticking out anywhere. I really like that, and for a small slip joint, that's an excellent mechanism.
So why have you never made a slip joint front flipper?
I actually never made a slip joint flipper. So I designed the Monte Carlo. That was one of my first slip joint design, and by far the most popular and successful custom knife I ever built. I've made more than 700 of these custom, one at a time by hand, and that just speaks a bit about the massive success the Monte Carlo has been to me. But I designed it to be a two-hand open folder. With this design, I'm looking into more ways to actually sell this. So I designed the Monte Carlo specifically for a very strict knife law environment where it was required to be a non-locking blade, two-hand open. This is not it. I do want this to be available in several variations, one with a flipper, one without, because I still want to cater to those people living in very strict countries where a one-hand open knife might be illegal to carry. With this design, I actually want to introduce several options. So my general idea right now is to offer 2 types of blades, one flipper, one two-hand open. I want to make the clip ambidextrous, so you can carry it left or right, and I want to offer several handle variations as well. The idea that I'm working on right now is actually to make it customizable on our website. So you can pick the blade, pick the handle, pick the backspacer, pick the clip, and then put everything together in one full package. I think that's a super cool idea, and I think you'll like it as well. So if I'm seeming just a little bit scattered in my brain right now, it's because there's so much going on in the shop right now. This episode will actually be out long after whatever I'm doing right now is in effect. But right now I can tell you we are working on shop expansion, buying new machinery, building new prototypes for different projects. I have traveled for design meetings, I have traveled for trade shows. I have so much on my plate, and shooting this episode today is just a culmination of all that. But I'm so enthusiastic about this design, and I just can't wait to show you what this will be. One of the ideas I also have with this design is to make it so that it can be used as a money clip. Here is my casino model. It functions reasonably well. It's a little too big actually to be a suitable money clip, but the style of clip actually makes a lot of sense. The clip on the casino is ambidextrous. You can move it from side to side, which is a huge bonus. I think that is something I will make a similar type of clip for this design as well. This is a little on the long side. The new slip joint will be shorter than this, another benefit. But when you use a knife as a money clip, you have to take into consideration, will you travel with it? Will you have a knife in your pocket when you're in an unfriendly knife environment? Will having a knife in your pocket when you're sitting in a restaurant and you want to pay with cash be a problem? Probably not in the US, but in Europe it can certainly be an issue. But having a small two-handed open knife will fly just about anywhere. Right now, the design is getting to a point where I'm feeling really comfortable about it. It's a super simple design. I stripped it from any detail whatsoever, but that's how I like to work. I design as simple as possible, and then I start adding small cool details that will lift the overall package up to a different level. So it's so easy to design what I like to call layered cake. Just add more, add more, add more. It doesn't get better by adding more. It gets better by removing stuff. Only when you have the bare essence, when the design is boiled down to exactly what you want it to be, then you start to add details. That's when the design is lifted from mediocre to great. So how do you design something you have absolutely no idea in designing? Well, maybe I do have an idea. I have a general idea of how the mechanism should work. This is another example of a front flipper. It's sticking out a good almost half an inch. This is a Best Tech knife. Doesn't function super well, but it's a slip joint, it's a front flipper. What I want to do is I want to design a mechanism or a flipper for the front flipper that doesn't stick out, that doesn't make a weird shape when the knife is closed. One of my biggest pet peeves in knife design is the knife needs to be beautiful when closed. Let's face it, the folder is closed 99% of its entire life. It's in your pocket, maybe in the bottom of your pocket, maybe it's clipped to your pocket, maybe in your bag, but it's closed. And if it's not beautiful when closed, what is it then? Then it's just an uncomfortable lump of metal in your pocket. I don't like that. So every single knife that I ever designed, I try to make it beautiful in the closed position. Next step, after having sketched for a while, was I just took some of these relatively identical drawings into my CAD program and sketched out a few variations of the blade design. The handle shape right now is a almost symmetrical barrel shape, and if that's the right route, I'm not entirely sure. I did a little bit of sketching on the handle where I made an almost coffin shape, and that might actually be the direction this will take. This is something that takes enormously long time and not something that we will get done today. Still, the overall lines are close enough for me that defining the exact shape of the handle at this point is actually a detail. If it was some of the other designs that I've done, the handle shape is super defining and that requires so much more work at this point. But here, I'm actually putting my focus on the mechanism, on the function, on some of the other ideas that needs to be in this design, where the handle shape is almost secondary. But I know right now that I'm on the right track. Okay, look at that again. So what I've done now is just sketch out 4 handles here with just forgetting about the blade. Now I'm envisioning the knife is closed. What would I want the flipper to look like? I want it to be as subtle as possible, but the function needs to be perfect. So what I need to do now is get a general idea of how I want it to look and how I want it to function. I want it to be so intuitive that once you have it in your hand, it'll basically open itself. I wanted to have some play factor as well, but the main focus for me is that it functions super well. I do know that in order to fine-tune this mechanism just right, I need it to be a physical prototype at some point very soon, because when the design relies on a mechanism and that is the sense of focus of the design, then it just needs to be just right, and you can't do that on paper alone. One thing that I absolutely don't like about this design, I almost said hate it, but hate is such a strong word, so I don't hate on anything. What I personally don't like about this way of designing a flipper is it's so asymmetrical to the whole design. I think it's sticking out there like a shark fin, and I don't think it complements the design very well. And right now I'm trying to design something that sticks out of the handle that has a pleasant shape, and I'm thinking it needs to be somewhat round in shape, possibly because, well, the action of the flipper rotates around the pivot. So it needs to be a fluid feeling when you're using the flipper. So that's what I'm sketching right now. Right now I'm working on the flipper mechanism, and I just brought out the arrows to see if just handling would give me some kind of inspiration. This has a standard flipper mechanism, and that's a motion that I'm very used to, just running the index finger down the spine of the handle. Using the front flipper would require that your finger starts in the front of the handle. So handling these designs, it gives me some kind of subconscious inspiration to how my hand will work around the design. So one thing, actually handling materials, handling finish knives while designing on paper it's crucial for the design process. Designing on paper alone will never get you where you need to be, and God forbid, designing on the computer alone will never get you there. You need to have that tactile inspiration and feeling in your hands while you're designing to understand completely what's going on paper. So at this point with the design, there's so many decisions up in the air. Of course, the easy decision is just, well, it will have 5 different blade shapes, it will have 2 different opening mechanisms, it will have all that, so I don't have to make those decisions. That's not how we do it around here anyway. But I have some kind of idea what I want for a blade shape. When I started designing this or working on the design, I wanted something similar to the Monte Carlo. I really love the shape of the Monte Carlo. And I started designing around this sheep's foot style blade. Then it occurred to me, well, I've already done that design. I do love that style. I'd also like a blade with a more traditional pocket knife blade like the Casino. The Casino was designed specifically to actually more look like your grandfather's pocket knife. I really love this shape here. It has a very delicate point, and I wanted this knife to be a little more on the strong side, though it's a small knife. So right now I'm working on a drop point blade. The drop point blade has so many different uses, and it's a strong blade. And that's what I'm putting into this design right now. But I think that what's most important right now is actually settling on the design of the front flipper. And that will kind of help dictate all the other things. So now I'm centering all my design decisions around the mechanism. Now I've sketched out 4 handles with 4 variations of the same principle of the front flipper. It's not sticking out a lot. It has a lot of knurling or jimping on the surface, and everything is centered around the pivot screw. Everything will rotate around the pivot screw anyway, so I want it to be a circular motion around the pivot screw. Now it's about the time where I need to take this into CAD. Sketching in CAD is something I do a lot, but I go back and forth between sketching by hand and sketching in CAD, because once you have a sketch in CAD, it's what you get. There's no room for interpretation. But when you sketch with a pen, that's when your brain will start imagining things. That's when you interpret the drawing. And that's one of the things why my light table is one of the most important tools in my design office. And this concludes today's episode. Next for me is to just work on all the details of this design. And in the next episode, I hope I'm able to show you the next prototype for this project. But remember, To support this channel, we need to keep the light on. Visit the website. Right now, the Toko is on the site. This is the pre-production prototype, but by now you can order your Toko on the website right now. Leave a comment, say hello, subscribe, all that. And until next time, see you later.